Hello Duelist, I'm Tombox from MSTTV, and first of all I would like to thank GalacticGod for letting me guest upload on his channel and doing a segment that I've been holding pretty dear to myself, which would be the top tier timeline. All the top tier decks from the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh! To, I guess, now. But this will be part 1, so I'll be covering most of the decks from the pre-Synchro era, from 2002 to late 2008, 9-ish. Now, if you guys haven't subscribed to GalacticGod, please hit that little red subscribe button right below this video panel. It's like right there. And without further ado, I guess let's go ahead and get started with Top Tier Timeline, Part 1. So to start things off, let's give you guys a brief history of the start of Yu-Gi-Oh! So we're going to travel back to 2002, and I guess time roulette, go! So in 2002, we got our very first booster pack, Legend of the Blue Eyes White Dragon. Yeah, LOB! And well, it gave us iconic monsters like, well, Blue Eyes and Dark Magician, as well as several other cards like Pot of Greed, Raigeki, Dark Hole, Monster Reborn. These are really iconic cards that you guys will probably know what they do. And well, there was no ban list back then, and eventually the Yugi and Kaiba starter decks would come out, and all put that together, you will actually get a very, very messed up card game. Before the ban list came out, I remember some of the kids playing triple Card of Destruction, playing triple Monster Reborn, triple Pot of Greed, triple Blue Eyes White Dragon, and all they did was like throw Blue Eyes into the graveyard. And then with like the Pot of Greed and all that stuff, they would just play Monster Reborn, like 3 Blue Eyes in 1 turn, and then attack for game. Kind of similar to the OTKs that we have today, if you think about it. But then Upper Deck was like, well, I guess we should start limiting stuff because this game is getting stale really fast with like one really powerful strategy or dominating over all the others. So what came out was the very first limited list, which hit 10 cards, every piece of Exodia, and 5 really powerful spells, and semi-limited card destruction, basically. So now we got our very first Tier 1 deck that has a list to go with it. We have Legend Summon Skull Beatdown. Monsters back then didn't need to do too much. Our card pool was very small. Most effect monsters back in the very beginning only were strong if they were flip effects like Man-Eater Bug, because these guys, well, traded 1 for 1, kill a Blue Eyes White Dragon, like holy crap. And then there was like Hane or Hane, return 1 card back to their hand, so things are really hard to summon back then. Special summoning was a very exclusive mechanic to Monster Reborn, if you think about it, or Flute of Summoning Dragon, whichever floats your boat. Legend Beatdown basically gave us the very first 1800 beat stick, and 1800 now I guess is considered the standard bottom line of a monster being strong for a regular normal summon. And eventually that would get taken over by the 1900 beat stick, but right then and there, Legend was the only powerful level 4 monster that was one, like, didn't require a tribute. And the second monster that people really like using was Summon Skull. He was the 1 tribute 2500, which outclassed Dark Magician. Dark Magician did 2 tributes. Like, holy crap. I would trade 2 of my monster for 1 Dark Magician and then get a Trap Hold. Like, that was not worth it. People preferred to play Summon Skull. There was no MST back then, so Trap Holes actually put in a lot of work to stop your opponent from summoning monsters. So here's a funny thought. You know how we buy 3 structure decks nowadays to get like a complete structured deck, competitive deck? It was kind of the same back then with Kaiba starter deck and Yugi starter deck. Yugi, you wanted the Summon Skulls, and Kaiba, you wanted the Legends, well, and Blue Eyes White Dragon, of course. And like both sides of the decks had like staples in each one, and you just wanted all the staples all together, so you would buy, well, I guess 3 of each. But back then we didn't know any better, so you might have just bought 1/1 and then thought you could play against the kid that bought 3/3, and well, you get your ass handed to you. Unfortunate. So eventually the beat stick style of Yu-Gi-Oh! Would become obsolete thanks to, I guess it's not really a power creep, but a playstyle shift in Yu-Gi-Oh! Thanks to the new sets that are being released. From Magic Ruler all the way to Dark Crisis, this era would be known as the hand control era. Hand control decks were, well, basically hand control, stuff that we would try to simulate today to ruin your opponent's hand. Because from there, we learned that the best way to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Is to not let your opponent play Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah! Well, okay, so what cards did we get? We got Confiscation, Delinquent Duo, and Forceful Sentry. These were some of the most staple cards in the game, and of course, all these cards ripped your opponent's hand apart. Look at it, pay 1,000 life points, look at it, put it back in the deck or put it in the graveyard or randomly put 2 cards in their graveyard. What do you want me to do? It's just really bad. It's really bad Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess. But then back then, you can also replenish your hand much easier. You had stuff like, well, Pot of Greed, that was one thing, unless of course it got ripped out of your hand. You had stuff like Graceful Charity to dig for, cards like Cyber Jar. If you're rich, you would have Morphing Jar, or you were really lucky to pull it from a tournament pack. Fiber Jar, you know, you have ways to reset your hand. Aside from the stuff to reset your hand, you would also have cards like Air Knight Parshath because it punched through Scapegoats. Metamorphosis was a thing with Thousand Eyes Restrict. And there was many more things that people do. Monsters back then only needed to really focus on getting you +1s and -1s, basically, for your opponent. So you had cards like Donzaluk, Spirit Reaper, Air Knight Parshath, Yatagarasu, that's a really popular one. Or you had like Jinzo and stuff. Tribute Summoning was mainly for those 2 monsters, if I can really think about it. I can't think of other monsters off the top of my head that was like a Tribute Summon based monster because, well, every summon you do must be effective and you don't want to lose cards while you're doing it. So hand control era of Yu-Gi-Oh! That was pretty much it, just a bunch of good cards. And Beat 6 eventually would be completely outclassed, but most people still ran a copy or 2 of like Gemini Elves because it was the 1900 beat stick, of course. Some people ran Berserk Gorilla because it was a 2k beat stick that all it needed to do was attack. And most of the monsters that had effects with 2k or more as level 4 monster had some sort of drawback back then. The hand control era actually evolved thanks to the next set that I'm about to talk about, Invasion of Chaos. So from 2003 to 2004, during that little time period, we got Invasion of Chaos. Invasion of Chaos was like the Mortal Kombat of Yu-Gi-Oh! Mortal Kombat introduced like the rating system for games. Invasion of Chaos gave us the very first ban list, pretty much. I'm guessing that Upper Deck finally saw where the game was going and probably wanted to stop it from happening because it was becoming a chaotic mess. Most people ran. So the deck that I'm going to talk about during this era would be Chaos Control because it was the tier 0 of the time. Invasion of Chaos introduced the Chaos monsters. We got Chaos Sorcerer, Dark Magician of Chaos, BLS. We also had Chaos Emperor Dragon, and take all these monsters, all these really great monsters, and like DD Warrior Lady and all those other monster control, put it all in one deck. And of course we still had Witch and Sangan, so we had searches available to us. Now put all these guys together and include all of the hand control stuff from the previous era. Therefore we created Chaos Control. Yay! And Chaos Control was basically a better version of hand control. The monsters are much stronger, the games are much quicker. And not only that, it also gave us one of the most powerful locks in the game, the Yatagarasu lock. So if you don't know what the Yata lock is, basically it was, you say you had like a Sangan that was on the field already and it didn't die, and you had a Chaos Emperor Dragon, you special summon the Chaos Emperor, blow it up, you know, rip everyone's hand apart, and then Sangan would search Yatagarasu. Summon Yatagarasu, swing. Now your opponent's locked out of every card in their deck. And back then, there was not a lot of effects that happened in the grave. So you would pretty much just hit them until you get like a monster reborn or like a bigger monster. Hopefully a special summon, and then you would just special summon and then attack for game for the rest of the game. Yeah, that was it. You were locked out. Therefore, there was no way to win. And to prevent yourself from getting Yatalock, people ran monsters like Kaiku because it prevented people from banishing cards in the graveyard to summon out the Chaos Emperor Dragon. And you can start swinging with Kaiku to remove the target so that they could not bring out their Chaos monsters. Well, that kind of sums up most of Chaos Control. It was a lot of really, really good Dark and Light monsters all packed into one deck with all the hand control stuff from Spell Rulers or Magic Rulers. Yeah, and then that was Chaos Control, that was tier 0. I don't think there was any other deck that really could compete against it, and you basically played some variant of that. And because of this calls for the very first ban list in Yu-Gi-Oh! History. There was another very popular deck during the Chaos Control era, which I believe did live for another format or two. It was Magical Scientist FTK. This deck was pretty stupid, and well, it just basically required them to constantly recycle their hand until they got the combo. The combo is Catapult Turtle, Gillosaurus, And well, Magical Scientist. Magical Scientist wasn't required in your hand, but you would want a copy of Last Will because Gilosaurus will be sent to the graveyard from the tribute summoning of Catapult Turtle, and Catapult Turtle is now a Gatling gun. Magical Scientist would provide a crap ton of ammo so that Catapult Turtle could shoot it into your flotation ring on your face until your face crumbled on top of all your monsters, therefore making you lose the game, or you flip the table because, seriously, what the hell did I do? I didn't even do anything yet. So, with all these crazy combos coming out and with no ways to stopping them, but just by limiting them because, well, most copies were ran at 1, Upper Deck finally followed suit with what OCG did, which was banning cards, and Chaos Emperor Dragon and Yatagarasu were the first to be on this list, along with a lot of other cards as well. Hand Control was still available, but Delinquent Duel was definitely taken off the list for a little while. And we're going to move on to one of the most famous formats of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which I believe most people believe it was one of the more skilled formats, Goat Control. So what is Goat Control? Well, Goat Control can be defined as that format where people played Scapegoats and Metamorphosis to create Thousand Eyes Restrict, and this was one of the most popular strategies of the deck. Of course, there were many other strategies, like it goes beyond just the Scapegoat part. Like, Hand Control is still quite relevant. Air Knight Parshath could punch the Scapegoats. That was like one of the most popular tribute summon monsters available in the deck, especially dealing with mirror matches. Some people still ran Jinzo. Blackluster Soldier was still a thing. Like, there was like a ton of variety in terms of how people played goats, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why it made it very fun and very competitive at the same time. Now, even to this day, people still collected all their GOAT cards. I know I still have most of my GOAT cards. Now, beyond GOAT Control, there was actually something else that was gaining popularity, which was Archetypes. Archetypes are slowly becoming more and more relevant to the game, starting with Monarchs and Gravekeepers. So with GOAT Control being so popular, obviously it was going to get smashed by the ban list, and to some degree it was pretty hurt, and new decks were able to rise from its ashes. Now, in the second half of 2005, what did people play? Like, this was the in-between format where, well, the playstyle has just shifted again. Now the game is much more monster-centric. We got decks like Warrior Toolbox, we also had Tomato Control, and there was also like Monarchs. Monarchs definitely gained a lot of popularity, especially with Gravekeepers. Now during the second half, we also gained cards like Cyber Dragon and stuff like that. So Cyber Dragon actually was a very popular card. You either had 1 copy to 3, every deck somehow always had a Cyber Dragon, just because it was a very strong beat stick. Now, starting off with Warrior Toolbox, back then, we still had the Ignition Priority ruling. Ignition Priority meaning if you summon an Ignition monster, you can immediately activate its effect before your opponent can respond. That was the priority. Let's get that straight. So what did people play in Warrior Toolbox? Well, since the format moved to a more monster-centric format, Warrior Toolbox definitely allowed them to clear the board's monster quite effectively through the use of DD Warrior Ladies, DD Assailants. There was also Exile Force. You also had Mystic Swordsman level 2, and all these cards were fetchable through Rhoda. So you could answer the board however you would please, depending on what was set up. So for Tomato Control, it was very similar to Warrior Toolbox. It basically ran some of the same monsters in terms of its Warrior lineup. But tomatoes were included to tether out monsters like Donzaluk, Spirit Reapers, Nidoria, and to some degree even Dark Geroid because it can pop Spirit Reaper. Like, all these cards were basically using a dark toolbox rather than a warrior centric one. And of course, Cyber Dragons were included in the deck just because it was such a powerful card. Now, for the last deck of the format, there was Monarchs that gained a lot of popularity. It was also one of the most different decks that were played. It focused on using the tribute summon mechanic, whereas the other ones just try to special summon monsters or normal summon monsters that were level 4 or lower. Now, this deck basically ran, I guess, the 3 copies of Cyber Dragon, Zaborg, Mobius, and Thestalos. These were the most popular Monarchs. Grandmart sucks still, even then and now. And of course, the tribute engine was also very important. Now, how did they get the tributes? Now, tributes were either from Gravekeeper Spy or people played Dekoichi, the battle-chanted locomotive, that if you flip it, you get a draw 1 card. So that's how they kind of replenish the losses. And with Gravekeeper Spy, of course, if it flips, you get another Gravekeeper monster summoned onto the field. So that's how they mitigated the inherent -1 from tribute summoning. So here are 3 of the tier 1 decks of 2006. I wasn't very familiar with this era, so if I'm missing any decks, please list them down below. So one of the more popular decks was Cyberstein OTK. It was 2-card OTK, 1 copy of Cyberstein, and 1 double attacking spell. What would you summon out with Cyberstein? Well, there are 3 really popular choices. The first one being Cyber Twin Dragon, equip it with Megamorph, or use limiter removal and attack for game. Very simple attack mechanic right there. The second card that people used was either a Cyber End Dragon, same deal, attack for game, or Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Yeah, that was a really easy 2-card OTK. The only catch is you just needed your life points above 5,000 so you can pay the cost of Cyberstein, because he does cost 5,000 life points. Of course, right now he's banned. So Monarchs were gaining a lot of popularity and also gained a little upgrade along the way with the release of Treeborn Frog. Treeborn Frog obviously gave you free tribute fodders for your Monarchs, but not only did it give you that, it also the playstyle was shifting. Like, people switch out of the Gravekeepers into the Apprentice Magician engine using that old man magician that was basically a man-eater bug. And maximizing your advantage from that, you also use Soul Exchange to tribute off your opponent's monster for Thessalos, because I can't attack, but I can definitely rip a card out of your hand, so you can still get that hand control. Cyber Dragons, everything, the whole package was still there. Monarchs, definitely one of the strongest deck of the format. There was another deck that also kind of got an upgrade and revitalized, which was the Chaos deck. So we had Recruiter Chaos that very smartly used Shining Angels and Mystic Tomatoes to recur out a bunch of Light and Dark monsters to fuel for Chaos Sorcerers. And, well, basically it was a very smart toolboxing deck that would control the field very carefully based on the monster that it would summon out. And it basically still ran all the good cards, like all the basic staples, and overall it was also a very strong deck at the time. Alright, now moving on to the Hero era of Yu-Gi-Oh! The Heroes era, I should say. Well, we had Destiny Hero and Elemental Hero Stratos, and for Destiny Hero, I'm talking about Disc Commander. So Disc Commander was released in a game, and I think it was one of the best card releases for a game. And the Stratos was released from the Shonen Jump magazine, and for people that subscribe, got early access to Stratos. So you got to play this deck we all like to call Airblade for maybe like a month or 2 before it got limited. Stratos was actually limited before the release date of the magazine, which was kind of funny. So Airblade, what was it? Well, it was the tier 0 deck of its time. What did it do? It was a turbo deck that basically spammed out all your monsters and dumped all your spells into the graveyard, or as much as it can through the use of Reasoning and Monster Gate. If you got off Monster Gate, man, you're in good shape. So what did you do? Like, you basically played a very small set of monsters: Triple Stratos, Diamond Dudes, Dashers, and Malicious, and maybe one copy of Jinzo, I believe, mainly to secure the summon that was to come from Dimension Fusion. And where did the blade come from? The blade is from Divine Sword Phoenix Blade, which would banish all your warriors out of the graveyard for that big summon play that you're going to push out. And to secure the safety of all that, you would be summoning a Jinzo, hopefully, or maybe you'll fetch a Heavy Storm through the use of Dark Magician of Chaos. And basically through that, like, who cares if you get Bottomless Trap Hold, because, well, you would just play Dimension Fusion and they would all come back anyway. So Bottomless Trap Hold definitely was not a popular trap back then for this deck. Fortunately, this deck was immediately limited before the release of Stratos, which put Stratos at 1 during its proper day of debut. And, well, from that, eventually we got Diamond Dew Turbo, which basically ran the same way with 1 Stratos, but we also had Disc Commander. Disc Commander gave you a much more thorough draw engine. Like, holy crap, that card is literally a +2. Say you play Monster Reborn, revive that thing. So you got 1 for 1 for that Disc Commander, and then obviously it draws 2 cards. There's your +2. Like, what were they thinking when they made that card? That card is literally, like, if you look inside Pot of Greed, you'd find its baby, and it would be Destiny Hero Disc Commander. So Diamond Dew Turbo basically ran the same way, ran a bunch of normal spells, and used Diamond Dew to get their effects off, like Dimension Fusion, and then of course you don't have to pay the cost for these cards too if you get it off of Diamond Dude. So you had D-Draws, Lightning Vortex, Just basically, you name it, it would just be like one of those cards that it would obviously head off. The only card that I could think of that would not work with Diamond Dude would be the Premature Burial that you would use for the Disc Commander and the Divine Blade. And that was basically it. Every other card was hittable. So it's kind of sacking your opponent, but not really. Your hitting chance of your cards are really, really high. So in 2007, another card was also released. It was Green Baboon. Unfortunately, it got emergency limited to 1. I wasn't too sure of the reason why this card was limited to 1, but I do remember a deck called Baboon Burn. And Green Baboon back then actually worked during the destruction of your monster by battle, so you can actually tether him out very quickly, and you can actually push a lot of damage fairly quickly with that deck, and use Ojama Trios and Just Desserts, Ceasefire to actually burn the rest for game. So it was kind of like a halfway beatdown, halfway burn deck as well. I'm not too sure if I'm doing this deck justice, but that was also a deck that was available. But let's get into the Destiny Heroes Monarch deck. Perfect Circle Monarchs. Okay, Ryza was released. I don't know why this deck was actually called Perfect Circle. To me, that was always a bit strange. I guess it had a bit of a perfect circle play, if you will. So it used the Destiny Hero engine with the use of Malicious, Revival of this commander to gain a huge edge over your opponent. First off, you would summon Stratos or something like that to fetch yourself the Disc Commander, ditch the Disc Commander, and then basically most of your back row and your spells revive that Disc Commander, and you would revive the Disc Commander and then tribute it for a Monarch. Zaborg obviously lost flavor due to the release of Ryza. Ryza can ruin the draw of your opponent. So your turns kind of look like a circle where you would summon out Disc Commander, get a +2, tribute summon, spin a card back onto the top of your opponent's deck, and rinse and repeat, and there's your circle. I don't know if that's the actual proper way the term came from. I was playing the deck too. This was one of my favorite decks of the time. I was really sad when Disc Commander died. Also during this era, Light and Darkness Dragon was a very big thing. Although he was a 2 tribute monster, he definitely devastated the format because of his mandatory negate the effect of spell traps and monster effects. So he was somewhere in there too. The Heroes era also had the Jaden pack. The Jaden pack gave us one ultra rare machine. We would like to call him Card Trooper. Yay! Card Trooper had its own little engine, which was Troop Dupe Scoop. If you see your opponent play Card Trooper and Machine Dupe, you can pretty much just scoop. Card Trooper and Machine Dupe often resulted in an OTK if they had limiter removal. They would mill 9 cards, and the milling also matters quite a bit because they run Overload Fusion and Cyber Dragon. Now, if they do play the limiter removal and try to attack for game, well, not only is that very scary that you have to deal with like 3 monsters that had 3,800 attack points, but the problem is after you block it and all the machines blow up, well, he gets to draw 3 cards. And not only does he get to draw 3 cards, if he has an Overload Fusion, he can make a Chimera Attack Over Dragon and just basically go for another win condition on you. Just keep swinging big dudes at you. Another deck that was also very popular, and that was the anti-meta of the format, it would be Gadgets. Gadgets ran a very strong line of back row from Royal Oppression, Shrinks, and Dimension Prison. That made them very hard to deal with. They also ran their own copy of Cyber Dragon as well before they got Fossil Dino. And if you wanted to play Heavy Storm, well, they had Dark Bribe to negate it. So it was like very difficult to deal with all this back row, and I think that kind of popularized the back row heavy decks eventually to come. Now I'm going to go into the late 2008 to early 2009. We got Phantom Darkness, which basically was like Bosch when it was first announced, and of course the other set, Light of Destruction, the light and the dark. So the battle begins with these. Now, Phantom Darkness basically gave us a bunch of dark monsters with Dark Arm Dragon, Big Daddies in Town. Dark Lord Zerato, we had Dark Creator, Dark Nethys, Dark Greffer, Dark this, Dark that. There was a bunch of dark monster. Allure of Darkness was released in here. Holy crap, dark decks were the bomb. They were like so good, thanks to Dark Arm Dragon. And I'll be going over, I guess, Return Dad as the first deck in Phantom Darkness. Basically, this deck played very similarly to Airblade or Diamond Dude Turbo. What it did was, through the use of Allure of Darkness, Destiny Draw, and a bunch of other cards, you would banish most of your monsters, your dark monsters, and you would control the graveyard to the point that you would have exactly 3 darks. And then you would summon out Dark Arm Dragon, use Dark Arm Dragon's effect to pop every other monster on the field, or any kind of back row that you may deem as a problem. And then you would play Dimension Fusion, summon out all the dudes that you just banished, and then attack for game. It was very simple strategy, very similar to back then, but it was much, much faster. You had Allure of Darkness, Destiny Draw, Disc Commander, a bunch of revival spells. It's like, holy crap, Dark Wrath refueled your graveyard immediately. All these things built up to this tier 0 deck, basically. Now, an interesting thing about Phantom Darkness is it also, like Bosch, had an emergency ban list. Dark Magician of Chaos, Cyber Valley, and Dimension Fusion was the main reason why, well, Phantom Darkness received the emergency banning of Dimension Fusion, the limiting of Return of Different Dimension, and the semi-limiting of Allure of Darkness. Well, how did that work? Well, Cyber Valley would often get machine duplication and they would banish themselves, and then if you play Dimension Fusion, you can actually get those cards back, basically turning into like a double pot of greed. You can actually turn that into an FTK as well, as long as you had Shadow Priestess of Ohm or a Tomb Cannon Soldier that you searched earlier on. Basically, you just revive and burn all the cards that you bring back. You use Cyber Valley to actually dig it out really quickly, and then, well, put out a Shadow Priestess of Ohm, play the loop. We'll just go Dimension Fusion, revive everyone. DMOC will add the Dimension Fusion back, burn them all. Basically, you can burn the DMOC off and then play Dimension Fusion again. And usually, to actually mitigate the cost of all this, you would have spell economics so that you don't pay for the Dimension Fusion's 2,000 life point cost. So that was one very annoying loop, and eventually, of course, that would get banned. Gladiator Beast couldn't really compete at the time, but then thanks to Light of Destruction, they gained 2 really good cards. These 2 cards were Darius and Geyseris, the fusion monster, and the Horseface. Now, Gladiator Beast was released in Gladiator's Assault, but it didn't exactly pick up because it wasn't exactly a very strong deck. I mean, some people played it and thought it was like maybe a tier 2-ish deck, but after the release of these 2 cards, holy crap, like, the perspective of the deck definitely changed. It was tier 1 guaranteed. It ran Cold Wave, so you know Denko Sekka, but a spell, Cold Wave. You play Cold Wave, set Hoplimus, and then you just let him go. What are you gonna do? You have no spells and traps to activate, so you can only summon attack into it, or you don't attack into it at all. Now, the deck also ran 1 elemental hero in the deck, Elemental Hero Prisma. Prisma pretty much copied a name that came out of the deck. So to actually summon out your Gladiator Beast fusion monsters, you contact fuse using the correct names, and Prisma can copy out Lakari, can copy out Bestiari, and Bestiari was the one monster that you needed to tag into Geyseris. Geyseris was like, you summon pop 2 basically. It's like free popping, very strong card, very strong monster, and then when it attacks, you can tag it back in at the end of the battle phase to summon out 2 monsters, and that would give you much quicker access to the big boss monster Heraclinos, thanks to Darius. Because Darius, what people actually did with the Prisma play was they would summon out Prisma, use his effect, reveal a Geyseris, throw a Bestiari into the graveyard, copy his name, throw a Test Tiger out onto the field because it can special summon, tribute it, summon out Darius, getting your Bestiari out of the graveyard. And now you have straight access to Geyseris. It was very easy, very quick. Quick and dirty was how it was done. And well, it was a very powerful play. And you didn't have War Chariot at the time until the Synchro era, but with Cold Wave, you could do this without any problem, and then you could block all of your opponent's spells because you were a monster-centric deck. In Light of Destruction, we got one of the biggest archetypes. It was like a light versus dark era. We had Lightsworns. Now, Lightsworns, triple JD, triple honest. There was no charge of the Light Brigade at the time, so there was maybe a minor consistency issue, but you ran Necro Gardenas and stuff in there as well. So, because your deck is so mill-based, your main trap was Beckoning Light, and Beckoning Light actually was a very effective battle trap because, say you dish your entire hand for triple honest, you can triple honest for a game. And with triple JD, this was a very quick format, very explosive, and well, not a lot of people could handle it. So the top tier decks were just the 3: Return Dad, Glad Beast, and Lightsworn. So that would be it for all the decks pre-synchro. that were top tier. If I missed any deck, please leave it in the comment section below and fill me in on the timeline so I could be enlightened by your knowledge. And of course, you can check out our channel on MST.TV for part 2, which will go into the Synchro Era all the way to, I guess, the current sets. And yeah, the link for MSTTV is down below. Don't forget to subscribe to GalacticGod. Like on my channel, we do really good dueling commentary. We have sketches. We do a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh shenanigans. Like,
yes! Fire like bitch! You got over my skill! To live games, wavering eyes, double wave, oh my god, 4 wavering eyes!
And I guess I'll see you there. And don't forget to ascend your Galactic God to 100k subscribers, and don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.